Hello and welcome to today's video where I'm working on a project with my GoPress and foil, and this is not stuck down yet, but I wanted to show you the card I'm working towards making. So if I turn this around, as I say, it's a bit crooked because it's not stuck down yet, and it's not stuck down because I haven't finished the foiling yet. So just put the camera up a little bit. That's it. Right, so here's the card I'm making. So I've got my card base, and I've got the middle out of this purple metallic card that I'm using for the mat, because I'm using on top of that, I'm using a 300 GSM stamping stroke watercolour card for my foiling. Okay, so this is where we're going with this. So I've got this nice big piece of card that I can embellish if I want to, or use on another project. Okay, that doesn't need to be hidden under there. So that to one side, just so you know, I have done that. So I'm using, for my topper and its mat, the bracket frames from the Couture Creations Modern Essentials range. So here's the bracket frame set. So I'm going to be using the second size down, which is this one, and then I'm skipping a size and going for that one for the centerpiece of the topper. Okay, I've also used already Couture Creations Anna Griffin Happy Birthday Hot Foil stamp, and this pretty flower from the Le Petit Jardin collection. Okay, now I've used that particular hot foil stamp because it coordinates nicely with the paper I've chosen, but this is kind of a design idea, so I'm sure there's lots of possibilities for creating variations on this. Okay, so let me just put these out the way for a minute. Oops. Over there. Okay, I'll keep those two dies to hand. So I'm using this 300 GSM stamping stroke watercolour card. It's actually Sheena's stamping card. And the reason I've done that is because I want to be able to do some proper colouring on my foiled image. Okay, so I've coloured this using some brush tip aqua markers, but you know, there's lots of water-based products you could use for that, and I will show you those in a moment. And then I've used, now this is a heavy paper rather than a card, but this is from the 12 by 12 paper pad for the Le Petit Jardin collection. So I've used that, and these dies, I hold this up close, create a lovely foiled line around the edge at the same time as cutting out. Okay, you can possibly see it even more clearly on here. Let's make it focus. There we are. So you get that beautiful fine line around the edge. Okay, so let's look at how we use these dies. Put that to one side. So I've got my dies here. Oh, here's my examples. So that one, the different ways of colouring. So that one I've used pigment stamping ink. So pretty much any water-based product, because the foil acts as a resist for you. And that one is mica watercolour paints. Okay. And that one was done with watercolour pencils. I'm not the world's greatest colourist. I have a bit of a dabble, and I've not necessarily got the world's greatest product. Certainly my aqua pens and my pencils and things, they tend to be sort of the low cost options. And this one was done with some gel pens, and then I've used a water brush to blend it afterwards. And I've used water brush on all of these. And this one that's actually for my topper, as I say, I've used water-based brush tip marker pens, and I actually coloured around the edge of the petals and then used the water brush to blend it into the middle to get the graduation in the colour. So that's those. Back to the foiling. So I'm going to use this one rather than use more paper from my the Petite Jardin pad. So that's an A6. I think that's about an A6 piece of coloured paper. So I need to cut some foil to size. Now I'm doing mine in silver, but again, lots of possibilities with this colour idea. So is that long enough? That's not quite long enough that way. Might just, but I'm going to go the other way and trim it. That will do. I find the best thing for cutting my foil is big scissors, because I can get a nice straight line going across. And I'm cutting close to the roll, and then I seem to get a straight line. Okay, now I don't want this foil quite this wide, so I'm going to do some trimming. So if I want it, I need to be able to stick it down to my card, so I'm going to just crease there. I've got a line to cut on. And it's a bit too long. I always find it better to cut the foil off the roll slightly oversized and then trim it afterwards, because if you cut it off the roll too small, then you're not going to be able to do anything with that. I've got that just about the right size, only just. Do you know I have trimmed that too small? So I'm going to put that to one side. I can use that for the foiling I'm going to do later, and cut another piece. Sometimes it's easier just to line up your card. Maybe put a crease line. Yeah. Because when I trimmed it too much. Make sure I'll take a little bit off the ends. I've got a bit more leeway at the ends. Right, take a bit off of there. I want to be able to fit that in the middle there. Yeah, have a little bit of card at the back to stick to. Okay, so that's now the right size. So now I find the best thing with these, so that I don't get over foiling, is to actually use a craft knife and cut the foil out of the middle. So I've got some scrap paper on my cutting mat here, or my glass mat rather, and that's just to protect the foil from being damaged by anything that might be on my mat, glue or tape or bits of dust or anything like that. So just carefully go around. You don't need to press hard, it's only thin foil. And actually with the paper underneath, it really because your knife's got somewhere to go, you need less pressure than you do if you do it directly onto something like a glass mat. I'm just holding the foil still. I'm using the die to press down on the foil to help keep the outer part still. And just following the lines round. And the good thing about taking the foil out of the centre is I keep this and use it later. Well, you know, if I've got something smaller I want to foil, such as my sentiment, something like that, we'll just keep it to one side for another project where I might want to be able to foil a sentiment. You know, there's enough you're cutting out the middle and you're keeping it pristine. There we are. Okay, you could do it by cutting the foil into strips, but I actually find I waste more foil that way. So there's that, and then that needs to go onto my patterned paper or card. If you're using a very thin pattern paper, you probably need to stick it down to some card first rather than go directly for this, because otherwise the embossing could actually go right through it, because there's an embossed, it embosses where it foils. Okay, so that's there. I'm going to get some pieces of tape, and it doesn't need to be very secure, it just needs enough to make sure it doesn't shift when I lay it on the go press. So just overlapping the die a little bit and onto the cardstock. And the same over here. You know, just a couple of bits, just so that when I pick it up, the foil doesn't slip out from under the die. Okay, well, it's cut and foil die. So that's that. I'll put this to one side, and let's have a look at how the go press is set up. Let's move that foil out of the way. Right, so on my go press I have a thin metal shim. This is the sort of metal shim you use with your die cutting machine. Okay, it's about the thickness of a couple of pieces of card. Okay, it's not the Couture Creations conversion plate, not for these. And then I find it best, you could have a second metal shim, or I find a piece of 300 GSM card does the job for me. So I keep that, I keep the two together. And if I'm using heavier cardstock, sometimes I need a second card shim underneath the metal plate. So that's something you kind of need to test out with your die cutting machine and maybe the cardstock you're planning to use. Okay, so that's hot. So this goes die on the metal shim. So my foiling edge is facing up as it normally would, but because we need to be able to cut, we need that extra pressure from that card shim and the metal shim. So that's in there, and as you can see my lid is quite scratched and it still works fine. It is designed to act as a cutting plate for these kinds of dies. So I need to put that in, and I need to make sure that the die has had time to come up to temperature before I put it through my die cutting machine. So while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to get the die cutting machine out. Okay, so my green light on the go press is on, and that's had probably about a minute to heat through. So now I can pull the hot plate off the base. Now I'm using a Big Shot Plus, so I've got a big extra wriggle room with this. I don't have to go through straight, so I tend to go at an angle slightly. Okay, but instead you could put your die at an angle on the go press. So mine's straight. You could turn your card at an angle. And I'm going to go across at the other angle as well. Okay. Okay, so that's been through the die cutting machine. I'm going to use my pick and lift. You have to remember the die is just at the edge. So just at the edge and drag it off. And then that can stay nice and warm for the next stage. So that go press has gone back on its base. And then just turn this round and press gently, it falls out the back. And there you can see it's got its foiled edge. Okay, so I need to repeat that on some of my stamping card so that I can actually create the piece for the centre. So, stamping card, some scrap paper. Now this stamping card, it's quite smooth one side and got slightly more of a texture the other. I am using the smooth side. So I've got my die. Now the question is the piece of foil I took out the middle big enough to do this? Just about. So there we are. So I'm going to take the centre out of that as well. Again, it's so that I don't get overfoiling in the centre. There we are. So that's probably enough to foil my flower in a minute. Okay, so I've just cut that out of my card. That's clever. Yeah, don't leave your card underneath. So luckily I've got another piece. Right. Die on the top. In fact, I think it'll even fit the other way around. There we are. That's it. People often ask what tape I use, and I'm in the UK. I use a product called Frog Decorators Masking Tape for delicate surfaces. 3M do a very similar product that's a decorator's masking tape. It's the sort of thing you use if you're doing sort of precise paint work, you know, masking off stripes on freshly painted surfaces. So I'm only using the card I need. Okay, so then I'll repeat the process for this. So I'm just going to pause while I do that. Okay, so I've rolled that through the die cutting machine. So as you can see, it's on the go press as before. So I'll lift it off. Okay, and I've finished using the cut and foil dies now. So I'm going to take the metal shim, just move some out of the way, off the go press and leave it to cool down. So I'm using silicone mat to do that. The card loses heat much more quickly, so I'm just grab an edge of that. Okay. Got some bits of die cut on my better. So I'm just going to put the hot plate back on its base so that stays warm. There's my die cut out. And sometimes the foil stays stuck, sometimes it doesn't. There we are, there's my die cut with its line around the edge. Okay. So onto that, I need to get my hot foil stamp. So I'm just going to put that to one side and the foil. So let's have a look at how we managed to get this in the right place. Now I used the same technique I'm going to use here when I foiled the sentiment. So let's look at where I'll put that. Okay, so I've used exactly the same technique I'm going to use for this when I've positioned this foiling and all of this foiling. Okay, so I will show you this one in a minute because I've got one more flower to do on here. So what I've got is a strong magnet. It's the sort of magnet you get with a stamp press, and you can buy them separately. They are neodymium magnets, and I've wrapped it in some masking tape. Okay, so I've got something all the way around it that I can grab hold of because they're very strong. If I let me grab another one. Right, don't blink. They snap together. You don't have to touch them, they'll do that. And if you haven't got them wrapped in masking tape, they are very difficult to then get apart. You have to end up kind of sliding them, and it's quite difficult. So you can imagine if I'm going to use this to position a hot foil stamp. I'm going to put that one right over there. What I want to do is put my hot foil stamp in the place I want it. And I'm going to just hold it with my fingers, and I'm going to put the magnet behind. Okay. And then when I get to my go press, I want to be able to put this down in a position. I'm going to line this up with the corners of the hot plate, and I'm going to hold the hot foil stamp down through the card and slide the magnet. Now if I haven't got the masking tape to grab hold of, I'm not going to be able to do that. So you need to wrap it in masking tape. So I'm going to move this back out the way. So you just need to decide whether or not you want your flower straight up or going across at an angle or coming across from the other corner at an angle. Yeah, however you want it. And then you put your magnet on at the back. And then I'm going to bring the go press in. Now obviously mine is now cooling down while I'm doing this. So if I'm not videoing, I leave it on the base while I do it. Okay, so I've got my hot foil stamp attached to the card with a magnet. And the hot foil stamp is with the back of it that I can see, so that when I turn it up that way, it's going to end up the right way up foiling. So I'm just going to put my die cut here, so it's up against the edges. And then I'm going to grab that, I'm pushing down on the hot foil stamp through the back of the card and sliding the magnet off. And And then I can pick my piece of card up and put this to warm up. Now while it's waiting, I can make sure I've got a piece of foil ready, and in fact I think that piece, yep, just checking that piece that I cut out the middle will actually be big enough. I'm just going to trim it a bit. Okay, and I'm just waiting for my hot foil stamp to come up to temperature, and then I shall add my foil. Okay, so just bear with me while I'm waiting for that to warm up. Okay, so my green light's just come on. Now again, I normally leave this on the base while I do this, so I don't lose heat. So I'm just going to put my foil over the top and put my cardstock again, lining it up with the edge and the corner, and then I'm going to add one small piece of tape just down there. So I'm sticking to the plastic edge rather than to the dark grey area. And then because I'm using stamping card, I found I need an extra card shim to give me a bit extra pressure. So I'm using, for me that's 3 layers of 250 GSM card, whereas normally I'd only use 2. If I was using a thin smooth card, but because this is, as I say, the stamping stroke watercolour card, I do find it needs a bit extra pressure. So that needs to just have a moment or two to come back to temperature because I took it off the base, and then I'm going to roll that through my die cutting machine. So bear with me while I get the die cutting machine. Okay, so my green light is on. So take that off the base. And I roll it through an extra time as well. So forward and back. And then I'm just going to change the angle. And again, because I've got a wider die cut machine, I can. If not, just go twice straight through and back again. Okay, so let's check what we've got. Take off my shims. And then the easiest thing is to use the pick and lift and pick up the card and the hot foil stamp with it, but remember to ease your tape up as well. And then we can check our foiling. There we are. Okay, so that's exactly the place I need it to be. Okay, so then I need to look at, I'm going to put this back on the base to stay warm, and then I just need to finish off the foiling on my backing piece. As I say, I use exactly the same technique, although this is a bigger piece of card, to position my sentiment, and I need to just do this final flower. So I'm going to bring my backing piece in, and that's going to go about there, and I just need to decide where I want this last flower. So I've been I'm going to turn this round to me, I'm afraid, and then show you where I put it afterwards. I'll just put that where it's going to go, and then kind of want a bit of leaf showing. Yeah, maybe about there. Yeah, about there. Okay, so now it's going to slide, so I need to hold it as I pick it up, put my magnet on the back, and then if it's not quite in the right place, Let me just get the magnet so it's over more of the hot foil stamp. There we are. So if this has moved as I've picked it up, I kind of adjust it at this stage. I can turn it round a bit, I can bring it down a bit, I'll take it up a bit. You know, it's held in place, so I can hold it away from me, yeah, and have a good look and decide that that's in the place I want. Actually, I'm going to move it up a bit because it's not quite level with the other one. No, it's a bit too far over. There we are. So I'm happy with it there. That's where I'm going to foil it. So I'll bring the go press back in so you can see it doesn't move. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over. Now, again, because I've got a wide die cutting machine, my card doesn't have to fit exactly inside the go press. If I need to, I can leave it sticking out a bit. So I've got a mark at the bottom here. I'm going to line up with this bottom edge. Just come in a little bit from the edge here. Okay, and then I'm going to hold my hot foil stamp down, slide the magnet out, take the cardstock off, but I'm going to keep it that way round, so when I put it back on I know which way round I've got to put it. And this needs to heat up. Now that shouldn't take too long because the go press wasn't off its base for very long. But while I'm waiting, I'm just going to trim the corners of my piece of foil. And that does help to avoid overfoiling. They help, it's not a guarantee. Okay, so just wait for that to warm up. Should only be a few seconds. It always seems to take ages while you're waiting. There we go, it's gone green. So I'm going to bring that back. Add my foil. Now I'm not too worried if the very end is missed because that will be hidden anyway on my card. And I've been quite frugal with my foil. And then I need to put my cardstock on, so I'm lining up with the mark I've got and the bottom edge, and I'm going to put a small piece of tape on that bottom edge just there, and then I need my card shims on there, close the lid and back on the base just to make sure it's at the right temperature. And it has gone to flashing red, so as soon as that goes green, that'll be ready to foil, so bear with me. Okay, so the light's gone green. I'm pulling this off the base. I'm just going to show you here. You can see my card is sticking out the side. So if you've only got an A5 size die cutting machine, do be careful whether or not you've got room for your card to stick out. With me. Okay, so here, just want to get the camera straight. Here's my go press. I'm going to lift up my card. Don't forget to take the tape off. Okay, and then there's my foiling, exactly where I need it to be. Okay, and then I just need to assemble the card, but you don't need to watch me do on video. So there's that. Bring the rest of the bits of card, rest of the elements back in. So obviously at this stage I could be sticking it down because I've done all the foiling. So this is going to go there. And then there it is, my nicely coloured one is going to go there, and there we have the whole thing. Okay, so hope you found that useful. Details of everything I've used will be in the blog post. Okay, thank you for watching.